Moving on to the house that dripped blood because it was on its period. This is a terrible cover, okay? Let me tell you, right here. Look how just dreadful that looks. Look at that. That's awful. It just is so bad. Anyway, I laugh at when I look at this cover. I think it's god awful. Now, this one stars Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Shocker, shocker. And it was written by Robert Bloch, just like the last one. Now, moving into our wraparound, the detective is going to this house to look for a missing person, and the people that are letting out the house, the company is called A.J. Stoker. A little on the nose. And so he goes and he talks to them, and we are told a bunch of stories that happen in that house. And it's not super eventful in the wraparound at all. So let's get into our first segment. Now, the first one is about a horror writer who needs he needs time alone so that he can write. Very shining. And he starts to see, because his wife is asking him, like, where do you come up with all these creepy ass ideas, all these horrible characters that you write? And he shows her a picture. I write a lot, and I've never drawn my characters out to show what they look like, which is a very convenient plot device for that girl to take. Spoilers, obviously. But she takes the picture, and then she has her new boyfriend, who just so happens to look a lot like his drawing, in order to just throw in some teeth and some hair to look just like him. Very, very convenient. But regardless, doesn't matter. So he starts to think he's seeing this guy roaming around his house. He's freaking out. Then he sees him attacking his wife, and he runs in, and she's like, no, it was you. And then he goes and he sees a psychiatrist, and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And then when he turns around, that guy's killing the psychiatrist. And, then he goes and we find out that they've been dating, and this is all a big elaborate ruse to get her husband committed so that she could live off of his income. And then the cops call and say that he killed her too, or killed her husband too. And then he turns around and he kills her. I'm not really sure why. Like, they're not married. She's married to the other guy. So all of a sudden he just decided he wanted to be a psycho killer instead of be with the girl he wanted to be with, that he started the killing for, and to live off the money. He's like, oh no, this is a better plan. Like, this is going to work out better. And then she turns around and he strangles her to death. And it's like, wasn't the plan to get the money, and now you can't get the money and you don't get the girl, so you just started killing and liked it, so you continued to keep doing it? Like, I don't know. It really I'm not saying it's not possible. It's not like a plot hole or anything. I'm just kind of really questioning the guy's actions. But he's a fucking psychopath murderer, somebody who would murder a person for money. So I can't really, talk to their character. But yeah, anyway, so that's that one. So the second segment has Peter Cushing and the villain from Lethal Weapon 2, Diplomatic Immunity. Yes. Yeah. He's in Mighty Ducks 2, but come on. He'll always be the villain from Lethal Weapon 2. Now, Peter Cushing gets the house, and then he says he's not going to be lonely, and then his buddy shows up, and he's like, I'm so lonely, pay attention to me. Which is really sad, actually. But the guy, like, instantly, before he even comes in, before he says anything, he's like, are we friends? Are we good? And Peter's just like, yeah, like, come on in. And we find out, because Peter Cushing's character has been just pining over this chick that's been dead for years. And then we find out that they had a little bit of a rivalry for this girl, and that neither one of them could get her. And earlier, Peter finds this museum of horrors, and he sees this wax mannequin that looks just like her, and he's so transfixed on her that he can't look away. And the guy comes and tells him that it was his wife, and he blah, blah, blah. And so he leaves, and then his buddy has to go look. and he looks, and he is just mesmerized by this wax mannequin as well. And he just keeps wanting to go back, keeps wanting to go back. And, you know, now, when he finally goes back the last time, he gets beheaded. And when Peter Cushing comes in, he finds his friend beheaded, and then the guy ends up beheading Peter Cushing as well and putting him on display. Now, is this the girl? Is this who they lost out to? Was she just screwing men over right and left? She wasn't able to be tied down, so she finally, you know, pushed the wrong guy over the edge, and he ended up killing her and keeping her on display. But like, he keeps killing these people who are like looking at his old wife because he can't handle the jealousy of it. But it's like, why put her on display in a museum if you don't want anyone looking at her to the point where you're going to kill them? And that's bad for business, by the way. You don't want to kill your customers, okay? That's just poor business strategy there. But yeah, it kind of just begged the question, like, why put her on display if you want no one to look at her? And why does every person who looks at her gets their head cut off and put on the platter to like replace it? Is that like to show the people who, you know, were lured in by her beauty? Did he want to kill people, and he knew that she was such a temptress that she was going to bring in these men? Or was it just so happened to be these two guys because they had a past with her? Or there's so many different questions it poses. So but it was fun. I mean, it's Peter Cushing. I'm always on board with that. And moving on. Third segment, A Man and His Daughter. This is Christopher Lee, which yet again, it's Christopher Lee. It's immediately cool because it's Christopher Lee. He hires a nanny / teacher to come into the house to teach his daughter, take care of his daughter, the whole works. By nanny and teacher, I'm pretty sure you could have figured out what she was doing, but I thought I would just elaborate because, I want to walk people through it like they're stupid. And the girl in the beginning, she fears fire, which is our first little hint. And then we see that she's caught reading stuff on witchcraft. And the dad is so against her having any kind of lifelike dolls. And he's trying to keep her away from anyone else. And then we finally find out that she's making a wax figure of him. And she's doing a voodoo curse on him. Like a witchcraft curse, I guess. Not voodoo, but it's like a voodoo doll. So, like, I don't know. But yeah... This yet again, it begs the question, if he knew she was capable of these things, A, why would he keep a book on witchcraft in the house? She just went up onto one of his shelves and pulled down the book of witchcraft. And B, why bring someone into the house who doesn't know about this, tells them nothing about it, and allows them to go get toys? A little girl, when you're going to go buy her a toy, the most obvious gift that a person's going to get them is a doll. So the fact that he's so against her having a doll, I feel like he should have specifically stated he didn't want her to have a doll when he agreed to her getting her toys. So I don't know, that was silly. And the fact that he brings her in, like, if you're so worried about it and you think that your daughter is practicing witchcraft, why don't you take care of her yourself? And another thing is that, like, each one of these segments is supposed to be the house. The house made them do it. Nothing before that was evil or whatever, and this house was part of it. And this was one of the two segments where I don't feel like the house played any part. Maybe just because they lived there and that they were always destined to be there, that the house was playing a role in their fate. But the fact that he says that his wife before, like her mom, was also practicing witchcraft, that she was also, doing this, and then his daughter takes up her mantle in the house, It's just like, it's not the house that brought that on. The reason he moved there was because he knew that the mom was already practicing witchcraft and got herself killed somehow. Maybe he did it, I don't know, but he couldn't bring himself to kill his daughter or give her away or whatever because he loved her, but he didn't know how else to tame her. But this house brought it on? I don't think so. That doesn't make any sense because, as I said, it was already going on to the point where he was so worried. He didn't want her to go to school. He didn't want her to be with anyone else. He didn't want her to have dolls. He didn't want to have anything. Now, maybe he was just preparing himself for the fact that she might actually do something, or was she already exhibiting signs from before? And that's what I'm saying. I feel like the house could have exacerbated that, absolutely. But he was having these problems long before he moved into the house. So I feel like that just doesn't go with the segments. And I don't, or the wraparound. I don't know if these stories were written together at the same time or whatnot. But if they were, that just wasn't really thought out all that well. And that gets me into my fourth segment in this, which is the actor who is the vampire enthusiast, and he wants to be the best vampire actor. Almost reminds me of Max Schreck in the Shadow of the Vampire, Willem Dafoe, John Malkovich movie. He's so obsessed with like authenticity. And he finds this like note, this letter that's left in his dressing room to come to this specific store. He goes, he finds this cloak that he wants to buy. The vampire passes it on to him, which passes on his curse with it. The guy gets to be freed, and this guy takes on the curse of being a vampire. And then we find out at the very end that the actress that he was with, that he bit in one of the scenes because he had the cloak on, was the one who set him up because she wanted him to be part of their, you know, whatever the hell, their group, their whatever the hell vampires have. They don't have a coven. That's witches. I don't know what do they call it. I don't know, a brood or something. That's not right. But yet again, almost everything that happened outside the house. He got the cloak outside the house. A lot of the things. Now, granted, these things happened to him once he moved in, but it wasn't like the house was manipulating anything. He ended up, yes, dying. Or, well, not dying, but getting attacked by the vampire at the end. And then he's at the very end in the wraparound. He lives in the basement still as the vampire. But I just don't feel like the house had all that much to do with that. Yet, just like the other ones. Same thing with the Peter Cushing story. All of that took place outside of the house. All of it. The only thing that happened inside the house was him just kind of brooding around thinking about this girl he never got to fuck, or did fuck and he never got to marry. Who knows? But everything else happened outside of the house. He had to go to this wax museum. He died in the wax museum. His friend died in the wax museum. Nothing happened in that house. So I don't know how that affected it. You know? So, I don't know. That was the horror writer one. Most of that happens in the house. That one fits. But the rest to me just don't. Anyway, alright guys. Next we've got, I think Tales from the Crypt is next, if I remember correctly. And then Vault of Horror. I'm really looking forward to both of those because I really like those. So anyway, alright. Dylan, I know this is your favorite anthology film of all time. Easily, really, I'm not knocking anybody's favorite shit, trust me, but really easily crazy, man. There's so many amazing anthologies. You never seen Creepshow? Creepshow 2? Not Creepshow 3. And many, many others. Alright, guys.